All right, hello everyone. Today's the 12th of July, 2021. Caramel cream. Not my usual cup, sorry. Well, I guess lately it's been. I felt the need to do this video this morning, and the terms are going to be veiled somewhat. Okay? Sorry about that. Dang thing. I tried to decline that call, but it kind of goofed up anyway. So hopefully we're back up. Are we up in 5-5, everybody? After that buzz, I had a little interference there. Maybe you can let me know if I'm still up and running. Okay, great. Thanks, Riley. Okay, so for the last couple of days, I've been harping on a particular subject. Hello, Ms. Cat. Thank you for being here. I've been harping on a particular subject because I'm going to show you something that you probably, if you figured it out, you probably don't realize how it fits into the scheme of things in a military operation. Throughout all of the subject matter that I've covered, especially over the situation in the first century, I explained how attacking the posterity of the opposition movement was one of the objectives, one of the tactics of the enemy, meaning the Romans. And I've harped on that for a long time. I've also talked about one of the ways they do that, which is attacking the male and female relationship, which has been going on since the beginning of time and is reaching a crescendo at this point. And if you all don't see that, it's because you don't want to. Okay? It's not a taboo subject. It's an absolute necessity that we cover this. Now, I'm going to do, of course, that class on those different things: blasphemy, lust, prostitution, whoredom, and the broken heart and a contrite spirit. But that's not what this is. This is the prelude to that, and it's very important. I'm going to use military terms. It's a very simple diagram. It would actually be much more complicated than this, but I think this will give you the idea and hopefully uh, alert you to the fact that we're in a lot of danger. Okay, this thing is already here. As you've heard a lot of people say, I understand that there have been a lot out there. AJ, MA, reading between the lines. I'm not going to say their names here. When Eisenhower decided to invade Normandy, actually, Normandy was only one of the objectives that were being discussed. He had other, I'll just say, not real objectives, but ones that would fool the Germans into thinking that they're going to go there, that the Allies were going to attack in this area instead of this area. That was kept secret. And basically, that's what they've done with us. Okay, they've disguised this whole thing in things about climate change, about the medical problem. You know what I mean? About uh, uh, the problem with CO2, overpopulation, all sorts of different names for it. To kind of, and that last one is really kind of the crux of the matter. But they've thrown so much at you. I've talked about it a lot before, where they throw so much at you, you cannot uh, 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 get through. You can't analyze one thing before they're hitting you with something else. So I'm going to make it real simple, okay? And this is really simple compared to a lot of military operation plans and things like that happen. But this will get you. Yeah, info warfare is one of the tactics they use. So let me go through this real quick because it's very, very important. Okay. This is undoubtedly a military operation, and the final objective, the main objective, is where the main effort, we call it in the military, the main effort will be towards that main objective. And in fact, that's how we can identify without things like even if you never studied the white papers of the different groups, like AJ talks about so often and some of the other people, even if you didn't do that and you were just collecting raw intelligence as you watch it happen on the battlefield, you can determine often what the final main objective is by where the main effort of the enemy's effort is. And so that's what I'm doing here, and I want to show you what's happening. So this started many decades ago, of course. Actually, as I've explained, these plans were made up in the mid 1800s. They wanted to take this out way back then, and I find it kind of interesting that people that, and again, I have no association with Masons in particular, but just like a lot of other things, people want to blame just that group. Well, the Masons were the ones who supposedly started at least one group of them started the whole idea of liberty, and yet then you're going to tell me that those same people began these plans in the 1800s to take down the very system that they created. That's all based on religious misunderstanding and bias and prejudice. You look at the fruits of the people. By their fruits you shall know them. So let me show you in a simple form how we know what the final main objective is. Okay? This is very simple. You start out with what's called an operations plan. You get into a staff relationship with the commander, and you decide what courses of action you're going to take. I've covered that in the past. Then the commander will decide on either one course of action. Usually he'll be given three, but then he'll pick one, or he might combine certain aspects of each course of action to come up with his own. Regardless, then an operations order is then made to carry out this. And what you have is a series of intermediate objectives that you have to accomplish before you can get to the main objective. Okay? And I'm going to show you why we know what the main objective is and why we're in so much trouble. So the tactics used, I've already seen one in InfoWars. Someone said subversion and infiltration. That's another form of tactic. Psychological warfare, info control, fear, and conformity. Just as some examples of some of the tactics that they push to get this final objective accomplished. So, just as an example, I'm not saying this is exactly right, but I want you to be able to look at the big picture and understand that this isn't just about health. Of course, most of you know that. This isn't just about the fact that there are, any number of excuses that you've heard out there, okay? Once you look at what the intermediate objectives are and where the phase lines are and where the lines of departure are, I'm going to show you kind of what those are, then you understand where they're going. And you don't need all those white papers to figure it out. So, just as an example, we start off, okay, and the attack begins. We want to get to the main objective, but we don't want anybody to know what the main objective is. So we're attacking these intermediate objectives for two reasons. One, to confuse the enemy, and we might use other tactics like feints, etc. Feint is like pretending you're doing something when you're really not. Or you send a reconnaissance and force out to test the line, and then you come back. It's an intelligence gathering thing. But at any rate, you have these intermediate objectives that you have to accomplish prior to the main objective. So, and again, this is very simple. So the first intermediate objective was to seize control of the government and corporate organizations. Okay, that was the number one thing. We see that in the situation with the educational institutions, which are part of the government, etc. So you work on that first, all right? Because without support from the inside, you're not going to get very far. Okay, so that's where subversion and infiltration occurs. Okay, and then the watchmen who are supposed to be watching that are being bought off, sort of like the Vichy French in World War One and World War II, for that matter. The next one, for instance, the next intermediate objective is to get the churches. And then, again, this is just an example of what's happened. You'll see the whole picture in a minute. So they do the 501c3 thing. They get them on board for that. They tell them that they're out there to help the flock understand what's really good for them. That kind of thing. Trade your liberty for slavery. That kind of thing. Actually, the way they sell is trade your liberty for security. And as we know, when you do that, you get neither. So that's another intermediate objective. These are all things as you're looking at the battlefield and you see what objectives they're taking and what's happening, you can kind of watch and then figure out what that final objective is. So the next part, there's a phase line, we call it. And at the phase line, it's kind of like a regrouping. You do your battle damage assessment. You kind of figure out how this operation here went, whether you can go forward or not. Well, they decided to go forward. So they have another thing called a line of departure. I didn't put it here. I did put it on this one. Line of departure is where they actually bring the forces up and they actually begin the operation. So they move on to the next one and they go to the intermediate objective number one, which is they did what? Well, actually, it was this over here. They attacked communication. They took control of your First Amendment, okay, uh, with all the different platforms. They've been, censoring those things, all that. I could have done that for number three, but I think you get the idea. Also, finances. Take control of the financial world is not the end result of what they're looking at. Okay, that's just one of the intermediate objectives, to take control of the financial situation. That's just one of the objectives. Intermediate objective 5 in this case. Intermediate objective 3, energy. Attack the energy grid. And then intermediate objective 4 is to go after your First Amendment, your ability to get food, water, etc. Now, in a way, these are kind of support functions in a real battle. You take out logistics, communications to get an intermediate objective on terrain. If you're on terrain, you'll take out a logistical thing like a supply line, a train, trucks, even like and I forget what they call it in Vietnam, but the supply line that came down from North Korea into North Vietnam to South Vietnam. Those types of things you take out, and of course command and control, okay, which goes along with comm over here. But anyway, so when you're talking about this on a terrain, you're taking out those logistical supports and those communication supports. They're called lines of communications and lines of supply. You take those out to facilitate your taking an objective on the terrain. Okay, what they're not really taking terrain. Okay, that's not what they're doing. But that is an intermediate objective they had, and they have control of it. Go to your local store right now and see what you can get, what you can't. Gas prices are going through the roof. Biden's talking about taxing the oil industry $90 billion on top of everything. They're shutting down pipelines. These are all attacks. These are military attacks, and your DOD is going along with it and doing nothing to stop it. All right, and you can guess who the enemy is, okay? So from there, you have these intermediate objectives. Once you have those secured, you're ready to do your battle assessment. You're ready to start your other plans. And actually, this is reversed. This should be the phase line here. You're doing your, I don't know if you can see that. I don't even know if it's that important, but I want you to understand what's really happening here. So they come up to their phase line, they regroup, they do their analysis, and then they say, yeah, we're ready to push for the final objective. So let's go ahead and take off from the line of departure. In the process of that, what have they been doing? This right here. Mark of, and I know people say, well, that's not what this is. It's the system, ladies and gentlemen. You're getting tied up on a technicality. The system has it in place. It's working. All the things are there. And of course, you should know what I talk about when I say GMI, right? You should understand what that is. Okay, so they've gotten to that point, and now those who won't have it, of course, we know what the end result of that's going to be. If you've been paying attention, I'm not going to talk about that right now because they'll throw me off of here for that. And I think this is important. So then they're ready to take the final objective. And ladies and gentlemen, when you study this thing, when you see what it is they're doing, you understand what the final objective is. You understand where the main effort's going and what they consider to be the desired outcome. And what it is I've said right there. Can you read that? I have horrible handwriting. Hopefully you can read that. Can somebody tell me what I said there? Can you see what I said there? Do you understand what that is? I guess I should write it out. I'll put it at the top. All right, this is what it is. Hopefully you can see it. Can you read that? There you go. Yeah, somebody's got the idea right there. No wagon or something like that. That's right. That's right. Alicia, that's what it is. You don't even have to believe in Satan, Lucifer, God, or not. That's what they're after. And nobody's waking up. I went to a store this morning, talked to a friend. He's been trying to tell the people in his store what the problem is. He's only got two people that even pay attention. The largest portion of mankind doesn't care, or if they do, uh, the concern is skewed by other problems. I told him this morning, I said, we're at that point where repetition and trying to get people to understand is a waste of time. It's now time to tell a person once, give them a pretty good rundown, and if they shun you, move on to the next. There's a saying in the sales industry, it goes kind of like this: some will, some won't, so what? Next. Well, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we're at that point. You can't waste your time on people that aren't going to listen to you. You just can't. This phase, they're already here. They're already here, and they're getting ready to go from the line of departure to this here. Now, I hear some commentators say that this is going to be another 20, 30 years, whatever. No, not with all the signs that I see happening here and the speed at which it's a blitzkrieg, and nobody in government is willing to stop it, not your intelligence agencies because they're actually working for them. Your DOD, well, we've seen where they went. Your politicians, even Rand Paul is still talking about the difference between antibody protection and getting the GMI. Nobody's coming out. Trump's still pushing it. He did come out and say, well, not for kids. Well, what? Ladies and gentlemen, we're here. This is happening now. Now. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. You're not going to be able to do that completely. Stay out of the way. But you're going to have to try to delay as long as you can. Now, there are others out there that are telling you how to do that, from when you're confronted with these things. I'm not going to get into that here. I just want to tell you that when you look at the battle plan as it's unfolding, one of the things intelligence officers do is they try to identify enemy units by their order of battle. Identification of unit markings, the way they perform their tactics, a whole lot of things. Okay, I've done that. They're getting ready to take care of this main objective now, not 10 years from now. And it is. That's that right there, which somebody put up there. I've got to run off and do some things, but I wanted to get that up this morning. I know it might seem a little superficial for me to go here, but you got to understand that this is a process, and the process has reached this point where they're ready to assault their main objective, put their main effort, and take it out. These are kind of like they're holding you with all these other things. They're holding you in place, and the main effort's going to take you out. I hope we can get some help from the divine, because I don't think we're going to be able to stop this. I understand that our little elfie doctor today or yesterday said that he's now for compulsion. Well, that was always the story from the beginning. And the end result, right there. You need to get married and have kids. You said, why would I want to bring kids into this? Well, the next step will be how to keep them alive and how to teach them correctly. And they'll be targets, absolutely 100%. But if we give up our humanity, God will give up on us.